Welcome to the StephUp Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Ann Webb, and with me today is Michelle Wollaston. She is a writer, spiritual advocate, and the host of the Soul Loom Podcast. Michelle works with women who've spent years over-functioning in roles, relationships, or workplaces that left them feeling invisible. Ooh, I feel that. Drawing on her background in training, coaching, and spiritual psychology, she helps women reclaim their energy, voice, and deeper sense of self without spiritually bypassing or burnout. Her work blends grounded insight with soul level wisdom, creating space for realignment that lasts. Welcome, Michelle, to the Stuff Up
Hi,
Podcast.
Stephanie. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
It's wonderful. I met you through Facebook because we've been
Yes.
writing for the same magazine, DWC magazine, and I love your posts, and I feel like you and I are we connect very well because you talk a lot about holding space,
Mm.
and you're also an empowerment mentor, which is the wording I use too.
Yeah. I love to put posts up. I think socials have become kind of a very draining space sometimes. I find a lot of people are posting on socials to try to attract you to benefit them. So when I get involved with a group such as, the DWC magazine group or other groups that sort of are the women who are my audience, I just feel like I like to post information that's kind of like makes you stop and think and go, oh, is that me? Or, oh, I haven't thought about doing it that way. So I just find that's much more satisfying for me. And I find that it's better for the audience as far as content.
Yeah, and it's relatable, and it's
Mm.
something that when you see it, you're adding value to the internet, to the world. And
Yes.
it just makes you feel so relaxed because you're not outwardly selling to somebody. You're just
Yeah,
like,
it's not clickbait because that really annoys me.
me too. Drives me
Mm.
crazy.
Yeah.
So when you use the term empowerment mentor, I was curious, like, how did you come to use that term?
I think from my own lived experience, I think coming through life in general, and I was in a long-term relationship with 27 years, which I left due to um, various things, which we'll probably talk about through the podcast anyway. And I was lucky enough to have a mentor come across my path when I needed them, who brought me back to being that empowered space again. I have always been a spiritualist. My father was a spiritualist, so I've lived in this belief system ever since I was a young teenager. So I didn't really need to find that. I already had it, and it was well and truly embodied in my belief system. But when my mentor came along, who she was another spiritualist, and just kind of started to say those things to me, which made me put myself first. And it was through being able to do that that I was able to step back and go, hang on a minute, what am I doing? And that empowered me. It was just those little tiny moments where she would say things like, you've got to stop and speak your truth. And she held space for me to kind of get that into my headspace, that it allowed me to go, well, why am I allowing this? And is there more to this? And this is not the lesson that I should be learning. And that's what I try to do to other women. I just try to give them that space and those little joggers, such as the posts I put up, that just make them stop and think, hang on a minute, what's going on? Um, so, yeah, it truly is just empowerment. And then how people work with that's up to themselves.
And that's what we're actually going to talk about today, because we were discussing what should we talk about, and you said one thing that you really help women with is understanding our guidance system
Mm,
and knowing, like, is it discomfort or is it a sign that there's something to look into, something is off?
mm,
And that is so understanding that is so empowering because I what we haven't talked before about, but my story is I grew up quite in a high control, shame-based religion. And so I did not know that I could trust my inner being because it was sinful.
mm,
And just understanding that coming into people would tell me, well, you have to trust your gut, like listen to your body. And I was like, I don't know what that means.
Mm.
And coming along on this journey has been empowering because it's understanding that I have an internal guidance system. But how do
Yes,
you
and
get
I
there,
think,
right?
and I think as you discovered in those early parts of your empowerment, when like I sometimes forget because I am in connections with so many people who are in this space, and we all kind of get it. And then sometimes I'll meet someone such as what you just said, that you didn't know that that's what your body was telling you, or that's what your environment was telling you. And it was one of the reasons why I wrote my book, because I found that sometimes as practitioners in this space, we kind of have a bit of assumed knowledge. We just think, well, if you're coming to me, you must know what I do and what it's all about. And people don't. And so when you're talking that jargon of, oh, you just have to feel into your body, people go, what the hell are you talking about? Wow, what? So it's really about breaking it right down to relatable terms that people understand, that that is their intuition. And sometimes if you say, oh, it's your intuition, they're kind of like, what? So if you break it down to things like, I call it the comfort meter, people kind of understand, oh, comfort, all right, I know what that feels like. Um, so it's finding a way of meeting everybody at where they are at the time.
Exactly. And I love that
Mm,
you say that and you recognize that because I in a lot of the self-improvement, self-help groups or with coaches I've talked to, um, there can be a not an understanding or not a fully listening to what somebody is going through.
mm.
And there can be talking at people. And I had that quite a bit. And so yeah, I would ask like, what do I do? People are like, well, Stephanie, like, what is your body saying? Well, I'm like, well, it's saying anxiety, depression. Like, I don't know. What do you want from me? And it
Yeah,
wasn't,
and a lot of the time, what your body is saying in this day and age is connected to go to a doctor and get a pill, which doesn't actually solve the problem of why your body's speaking to you. It just masks the symptom. It doesn't actually have you address why the symptom's there. And that's not to say that going to the doctor and taking the pill is the wrong thing, but you need to have that holistic underpinning um, to accompany the medication so that you're actually trying to solve the underlying issue.
yes,
Mm,
we can so easily go to something and we might need that at the time, but there might be something more or more we can do. And like you're saying, that could be that thing that we need to go
mm,
within.
yeah.
You mentioned the comfort meter. And as somebody, like I've had this confusion at times. When is it good to, like when I've had the comfort, like let's say I've overcome anxiety and I'm like, I finally feel comfortable, but there's that discomfort. And sometimes that's saying I need to get out of my comfort zone and do something different, or it's saying there's something off. Do you find that you have clients that are kind of like confused about the difference?
Well, it's discomfort is discomfort, regardless of how you're sensing it. So um, it's something that sort of dawned on me as I was working through my own situation. And then when I kind of related to the fact that it's an intuitive awareness, and it's also the universe talking to you as well. So it's your higher self and your spirit guides in that energetic space trying to communicate to you. And when you finally kind of start to understand that and listen, and you go back and you think in hindsight about all of the things that have occurred through your life, you can kind of see where that's true. Like I can go back and look at so many different things and go, that's why that job was like that, because I needed to leave. And I can see where when I've left and gone somewhere else, there's been a complete pivot. Um, so that I call it the comfort meter because it's a language people can understand. And it really doesn't matter whether it's just an uncomfortable feeling that you have when you're around someone or when you're in a particular situation, it can be as mild as that, which is those first little whispers of this isn't really the best thing, place, situation for you, right up to the loudest noises that can happen to you, which is when you have health crises or you have major relationship breakdowns and you'll often hear people go, oh, I just don't understand why this keeps happening to me. Well, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And it keeps happening for you because you're not hearing it. So it's getting louder and louder and louder. And sometimes, unfortunately, it will get so loud that sometimes the worst case scenarios happen because you didn't listen and you needed to listen and you needed to move. And I'm sure we all know people who have had to get into that extreme, and I'm probably no different in my own situation, to actually stop and go, enough. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. That's, if I may share an example of that, I used to work at a bank and I was there for 14 years and I had different jobs, positions throughout. But for 7 years, I was at the call center and it was not for me in a sense of it was not my fit. But I was there to learn something, but I was always uncomfortable. And people kept saying, why don't you just leave? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's too hard. I don't know how to. And I was looking for other work. And I was there for the amount of time that I was there. And I kept trying to leave and find different positions. And, but I needed that to learn what I learned. But then I was
Mm,
getting tendonitis in my arms. And that was when my body was saying, you can't keep doing this. And people were like, are you sure? Because I had to quit because I wasn't getting the insurance coverage anymore. Anyways, it was the whole thing. But people were like, are you sure you want to leave? And I wasn't sure. I was scared. I was like, I don't know. I'm leaving this comfortable job. But it was actually the best thing that happened to me as part of my growth. But my
mm.
body was telling me like, you're in discomfort and you have to leave. And even though I was in discomfort, like every day going, I was like, I know I need a change, and I wasn't ready to take that change, and my body did it for me. Is that kind of like,
And often, we always will tend to talk about, I can't do it because I'm afraid. And that may be the only thing that this lesson is around. And a lot of us don't leave situations because we're afraid of what we will do once we're not there anymore. How will we support ourselves if it's a financial decision we're making? How will I start again if you're leaving a relationship? It's always a fear base that measures your decision, even though you're identifying that this isn't working for me. I hate getting up every day and going to this job. I hate it when I'm there. I'm taking so much sick leave that I don't have any left. My body's hurting. But all of that still isn't loud enough to make you go, I don't even care if I don't have a job. I'm leaving tomorrow. And I think if people could kind of get comfortable with the fact that that is the point of the exercise, the lesson that is for you is to stop being scared and just do what is good for you, because then the universe will look after the rest. And you'll probably find that all of a sudden a job opens up. I mean, I've had places where I have left jobs, literally just gone, that's it, I'm done, and left, not necessarily having another job to go to. And more often than not, somebody will come along and go, oh, hi, we need this, or I've got an opportunity that, and I've never been unemployed for probably more than 3 or 4 weeks in my entire life, because something always comes along, and it either comes along because I've manifested it, or it's come along because I just went enough and walked out. And so you've now made space for the next opportunity to come in. It's conquering that fear factor and how long you're prepared to sit in the discomfort and put up with it.
that's a great point. And when you're working with clients, and they talk about the fear, what are some tools that you suggest for them as they're going through that? How to overcome the fear or,
I think, first of all, they have to first come to the realization of why it's happening for them. So you've sort of got to talk them through that space of, okay, so you feel like this, why? And it will either be because they don't like something or someone, it's not working for them and they're in the middle of it. And then I think you become so engrossed in that fog of what's happening, you can't think clearly. So it's just slowly allowing people to come to that realization of, okay, this is why this is happening. And sometimes that doesn't happen quickly. I mean, I even have friends who will talk to me and I'll go, that's the universe telling you it's time to move on. And then you don't see that happen, or they'll tell you that they have a friend and you'll go, well, you watch this space because something could happen. And next conversation you're having is, you know what happened? I'm like, yeah, I do, because it will ramp up if you don't listen. So it's first of all having that conversation around what's going on in your world. What are you feeling? What are the effects of it? It could be that I can't sleep, or I have physical pain, or I don't want to go anymore. And that can be on all sorts of extremes, from panic attacks to not being able to get out of bed every day. Like, you know, the extremes of your comfort meter are whatever they need to be. And then slowly, as those light bulbs start to go off, I think people are able to start to come to it themselves. And then it's just baby steps, and every single person is different. So it might be that you just have to start by putting a boundary in place. Just put one boundary in place. Just say no to one thing, and then sit and notice if things change. And of course they will, because the minute you're strong enough to even just put one boundary in place, that's an empowerment move. So you will immediately go, I did it. I said no to that person, or I said, I don't want to work full time anymore. You need to cut me back to part time. And often what happens is it happens for you, because a lot of people get so engrossed in the discomfort of what's happening. They don't stop to think, maybe I can just go and ask. And then the people go, well, of course you can. Well, yeah, what can I do for you? You then get wound up in that I'm too scared to even negotiate my position, regardless of what that looks like. And then I think the more those little steps occur, the stronger the person becomes in being able to then move to the next step, and then to the next step. And then maybe that final step is, I hand in my notice. I tell my partner I'm leaving, I can't do it anymore. I say to my best friend who is driving me mental that I can't have these conversations with you anymore. That topic's off the table. It's really whatever it looks like. But I think once you finally find the courage to just do those first baby steps, everything else kind of flows quite naturally, because now you've stepped over that fear line. So you've broken that, and the universe will also reward you, because they'll go, yeah, you just learnt that lesson that we've been trying to teach you. And so now, that has now made space for you to move forward that little bit more. So yeah, but everybody is so different. So I use with all of my clients that what I do for you is create a personal pathway. And that has to be different for every single person.
How do you create a personal pathway? Like, is it just by asking people questions about what works
Yeah,
according to
so
who they are?
initially when I work with a client, I'll have a strategic set of questions that I will ask them, just so that I can get a feel for who they are and what their situation is. I'll also analyze them through modalities such as I'll look at their birth chart. I'll look at their progress to moon phase to see what emotional space that they're in at this particular point in time in their life. And that gives me an idea of why energetically things are happening for them. And then through that initial sort of analysis, I will then sit down and talk them through it and say, well, where do you feel you need to start? And then that personal practice pathway could be just little tiny steps, like incorporate a daily practice of meditation or mindfulness, just so that you get out of your head and you start to be able to hear that intuitive voice for you. It might be, okay, where can you just set one boundary, and where are you going to do that? And I want you to go and do that. And I want you just to honor that one boundary for the next 2 or 3 weeks until we meet again. And it's all that sort of stuff. And it can be as tiny as it needs to be, or it can be as big as it needs to be. And a lot of that depends on, oh, sorry, that was my cat.
A lot of that depends. It sounded rough.
Yeah, no, they're just having a moment.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of that, it really does depend on the person. It depends on where their foundational understanding of energy and frequency and vibration is at. Most people who come to me already sort of understand that base level theology, but some people don't. So you have to then break it right back into those really foundational elements. And then we just build from there. So then as they conquer each of those little steps, then we sort of move the pathway a little bit more and we build on a few more things for them. And then they go off and they put that into practice. And often as that happens, they will then start to hear themselves, and they'll actually then come back into sessions and be saying to me, you know what? I got this when I meditated and this happened. And I've suddenly realized that that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done this. And that's when they begin to really honor and encompass their own, it's their intuition that they just haven't realized has always been there. They just didn't know how to hear it.
That's beautiful. Hello, my lovelies. It's Steph here for a quick break. If you're enjoying the StephUp podcast and you want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee. Just check the link in the show notes or the description, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can scan the QR code that's literally on your screen right now. Thank you so much. Sending love to you all, and back to the show. It's so wonderful to talk about small steps, because I know when I was growing up, there was a lot of talk about big steps, and I felt very overwhelmed and thinking, oh, I would just crumble under that. I would go, oh, I can't do it because that's the type A personalities. They're doing that. Somebody like me can't. But then when you start talking about taking the little steps, one foot in front of the other, and celebrating that, right? Like you were saying, when I set a boundary and it was so scary and I'm like, oh, and then I felt more empowered as I did that, and more empowered and confident. And it's amazing how those small steps will develop into changing slowly. And yeah.
Because often too, you know, some people are so, I mean, I talk about how, you know, especially women, we disappear into our lives. We've got so much noise going on. By the time we are wives, partners, mothers, daughters, friends, workers, business owners, when you look at all of the things that make up a woman's world, that is a lot of noise. And as women, we are wired through that feminine energy to nurture and to care. But I think through just the world we live in now, we're also somehow taught that we always have to put ourselves last to enable that nurturing. So we tend to let all of that noise overcome our ability to hear ourselves, because we're so busy nurturing everyone, which is our natural instinct. But no one has stopped to go, you have to nurture yourself first. And we always sort of, that's the very last thing we do. And then we wonder why we're drowning in this sea of noise that we can't get out of. So for a lot of people, it's really difficult when they get into that learned behavior of people pleasing and being the do all and end all for whatever their particular situation or situations are every day, for them to even be able to get to a point where they can stop for 5 seconds. I have so many people that say to me, but I've got so much to do, I can't possibly just sit for 5 seconds. And sometimes you really have to sort of get the stick out a little bit and say, okay, so how long do you spend scrolling on Facebook?
Yeah.
How long do you, you've really got to break it down almost into like a time emotion study for people to actually go, well, you're right, because it's all overwhelm. And then how do we escape the overwhelm? We procrastinate. So we do spend a lot of time going, I'm just going to sit and stare at the socials, or I'm just going to sit and read my emails, or I'm going to sit for an hour and watch Netflix, which is great, but not if you're using it to not think about something else. And then at the end of the day, you go, well, I didn't have time for myself because I was too busy looking after everybody else. But you actually could have carved out 5 minutes just there and made a cup of tea and gone and sat on your balcony and just stopped. So sometimes all of that noise is just so loud that, and it also becomes a very much just a language of what you want to tell yourself to not have to tell yourself the reality of it.
Mm-hmm. I have, ever since I was a kid, I would go to TV. That was my way of getting out of reality.
And there's so much of it now.
And there's so much of it. You can watch it on your phone.
Yeah.
I
And
even,
that's great. Like I would say to someone, if that's your way of nurturing yourself, if you find something on a streaming channel that you want to binge and you want to sit there all day on a Saturday and do nothing else while the world around you falls apart, then you do that. If that's your thing, then that's what you need to do. But sometimes it takes a lot for people to even realize that they're not utilizing their time for themselves because they're just overwhelmed in this language of I don't have time, I can't do it, etc., etc.
right. Yeah. I was in a program once and they said, write down how much time you are scrolling through social media because you don't really realize it until you realize, whoa, half an hour went by. And sometimes it's fun. It's not like it's not right or wrong, but if you're, I know for me, like listen to my body, when I start to feel like I'm comparing with other people or I'm getting too much coming at me at once, what's happening? Oh, yep. Okay, it's time to put that away.
And there's that downside as well. So it's around being very conscious of what you are consuming. And consuming is everything. Consuming is not just the food you're eating or the liquids you're consuming or the medication you're taking. It's what are you consuming energetically? Who are you around that is not good for you? What are you watching that is not good for you? The first thing I say to so many people who are living in that root chakra space, which is your fear space, is the first thing I want you to do is stop watching the news at night. I just want you to
Oh,
stop. I do not want you to turn the news on at 6 o'clock. Go and find something else to do in that half an hour or hour because it's going to happen whether you're watching it or not. You don't need to absorb it and then relive it. So just start by not doing that and be very conscious of what you're reading on social media because a lot of it's clickbait and it then starts you thinking and so much of it is not accurate. It's generated to make you scroll and for the algorithm to feed the marketing side of whatever the social media platform is that you're on. Rather than doing that, find a really high vibe podcast to listen to or go and read a book. I can remember one of the very first things I did was buy a book and I just read the book. And a lot of my recalibration just started through reading books. I mean, for any women who are in situations where they are losing themselves, one of the best books you can read is The Women Who Run with the Wolves by Claire. Well, I cannot think of her name. I'll find it for you for the show notes. But I read that, and that was the first book that just went bang. There's your first nudge. But yeah, you've got to move out of that space that is toxic. And if you identify things that trigger you, so it could be world events, it could be a particular person, it could be a gathering you go to, just don't do it. Just make that your first boundary and don't do it. And then think about how you feel now that you didn't do it.
yeah. And another aspect of what we see on social media, at least for somebody like me, is being told, I need this, I need that. When you're starting a podcast, you Google it and all this stuff comes out. And it can be overwhelming and like, oh, you need a mic, this kind of mic. You need this and this and this. And I've talked to various people who have like they wanted to know my opinion, starting a podcast. And I said, you know what? all of that, yeah, you can get that stuff, but all of that is noise
Mm,
and they're trying to market to you. They are trying to sell. And so, um, for me, when I see all that stuff, I have gotten caught up in I need this and this and this. But when I come back to myself, I come back to like, this is too overwhelming. I don't know. Just start, Stephanie. You can start with whatever you've got. And so I find that with all that noise out there, I'm not listening to me, I'm listening to them.
mm,
And that can keep us stuck because we get overwhelmed with all of the information, all of this stuff. And that's also where it's like, turn that off and you don't even need all this extra, right? We can, and this is one of the best things I've learned is like, start with where you're at. We have, the universe is here to help us. So just take a step with something as you're guided to, and things will fall into place and things will come along. So, um, do you find that with clients as well that they can get caught up in what they're being sold to at?
um, yes, and often it's possibly before they get to me because they've jumped on that bandwagon. Um, but you're right. It's around just working with what you've got. Like I have no expectation that anybody that I work with go and do anything more than maybe find a piece of paper and a pen. If you want to go and buy a beautiful fancy journal that's got an amazing cover on it because that's your thing, that's fine. I don't care if you're going to write it on toilet paper. You don't need all that. If you want to go and buy crystals, then I can probably suggest the ones that are good to start with, but you do not need them. You can call so much in just through intention and visualization that you really need nothing. And that's not what it's about. And I think some people feel that without those tangible modalities, it's not working, and that's fine. And again, it's something that I think someone like me learns through engaging with the person as to what they need in that tangible sense to make them feel like it's working. A lot of people can't just go and sit and be mindful and then they'll go, but nothing's happening. So if they need to burn an incense or they need to hold a crystal or whatever their thing might be, then that's fine. But you actually don't need it. Everything you need is within you. And it's just a matter of centering yourself, grounding yourself, and hearing it. And probably the only thing that I would say over and above everything else that you could do would be to write it down in however you want. And if you're not someone who can write and journal in a written format, we all have phones, we all have recording buttons on our phones. Speak it into your phone and save it, because it's the one thing that allows you to take notes of your progress, to write down what is coming to you in that moment, which is your intuition and your higher self speaking to you. It allows you to go back and reread it or re-listen to it so that you can kind of reflect on it again, which often will change what you've heard and you'll go, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And it's really nice to look back on to see where you were a week ago, a month ago, 5 years ago, to where you are now. And that again is part of the empowerment, because you're like, wow, I don't remember writing that, but that's right, that happened, and look where I am now. So that is probably the one thing that I would say to everybody in some way: write it down. It's between you and the page you're writing it on. No one has to see what you're writing. It's the one place where you can speak your truth without being fearful of anybody disagreeing with you, trying to change your mind. There's none of that exists. No one ever has to know what you've put on the page. And the beauty of writing it down or speaking it is that you've now put it out there. You've actually intentionally put that out into the ether. So then when you get into that whole manifesting space, you've actually started that process, because what you're thinking, you're speaking, and through that you're feeling. And that is basically the premise of manifesting.
Right. I remember hearing that when I was younger, talking about write down what you're looking for in a spouse.
And
And
you
that
know,
is
if vision boards are your thing, that's fine, or whatever works for you. You know, there is no right or wrong. I think so many people get hung up on, oh, but somebody told me I have to meditate like this. No, you really don't. It's whatever it is for you to get the result you need. So there's a lot of that happens as well. There's a lot of, you know, oh, but you have to do it this way and that way, and there's a rules. There's no rules. It's you just do you and what works for you and what resonates and what gives you the result you're looking for.
that's very comforting to hear you say that. And it's helpful because we can get caught up in that. I
Mm.
I was always a rule follower, so when I heard all this stuff online, I was like, well, I have to do it this way, and I try things, right? But then I thought, well, I don't connect. I don't like guided meditations. I actually it gets me out. I get too focused on like, they're going too fast or whatever. And I found for me, it was like I just sit with calm music or nature or a fan sound or whatever, and that helps me. And other people will be like, they love the guided meditations. But
Mm.
I had this idea that it had to be a certain way and it wasn't working. So,
Everybody is so different, and I think so many people don't actually realize at what point they're sitting on that, for the want of a better word, spiritualism spectrum. Um, I think some people are far more frequency tuned than they realize. And that can be a little bit of a shock too, that when you suddenly start doing things that massage your intuition and it starts to get loud, that actually can be really scary because it's a difficult thing to trust. And I mean, we will hear thought bubble people all the time talk about trusting, you know, the Oprah Winfrey's, the Tony Robbins. Like there aren't too many people out there in the public facing world who don't talk about trusting that inner voice. But that's not as easy to do as it sounds. And it takes a lot of just, again, those small steps that my gut is making me feel like I shouldn't be doing this. So I'm just going to stop doing it. And you have to trust in the little tiny steps. Um, I mean, it took me probably 3 or 4 years to trust what I knew, but to then actually take the action that supported what I knew I had to do. And it's a word that my mentor said to me, and I've actually heard other people say it in other circles. It doesn't matter if what the action is. Imperfect action is better than no action at all. So if you do something and you stuff it up, it doesn't matter. The point is you've actually taken some form of action to move out of the situation and to move forward. And you can perfect it later. It doesn't matter.
yeah, that's
So yeah, if you
beautiful.
buy a podcast speaker, what's the worst that's going to happen? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Many people can get stuck in that, am I taking the right step? But it's like you're saying, as long as we're taking steps.
That's right. And I can't necessarily even tell someone what the right step is. All I can do is listen to what you're telling me, try to surmise your situation, and then through, because when I work with someone, and this would be the same for anybody in this world that does what I do, you know, we are connecting to our higher self. And when we're working with the person, their higher self, like the two higher selves are connecting for me to receive the intuition about that person. So I'm actually not telling them to do anything. I'm telling them my intuition feels, which is actually from them anyway. That's the message they need to hear. So a lot of it is trial and error because I'm saying, well, I think you should try this. They then sort of have to trust the process and give it a go. And then by doing that, their own intuition is able to be heard. And then they start to streamline because often they'll come back and go, well, I actually started doing this and I found that really worked. And it's like, well, okay, great. That wasn't what I suggested, but that's what your own self suggested and you actually took it on board. And that's why it's working for you because you followed your own intuition as to what was going to resonate. So, yes, some people will say, I can't listen to a guided meditation because it actually distracts me. Whereas some people go, I can't meditate in silence. I need to hear that voice. everybody is so individual in how they do what they need to do for themselves.
And that's what makes us the world so beautiful is
That's
that
right.
we are so different and we all have these unique talents, abilities, guidings, and coming together, that's what makes the world go round.
Mm, that's it. And we're all unique, and our frequencies are unique, and what works for us is unique. So you've just got to sort of learn to find what works for you, and that becomes so much easier once the noise settles and you can then hear what works for you. And even in physical symptoms, once you start to your body starts to ease, you start to suddenly notice, oh, that's not hurting anymore, because there's no louder noise than physical pain. um, that's a really hard one to break through. So it's allowing people to then go back and sort of do a scan and do a recheck, and go, well, what has changed? Because often you don't stop to reflect upon what feels different now. You just get in the moment and you start doing it. It's like, now I want you to stop and think about, where were you in 2 weeks ago and where are you now? Oh yeah, okay, that's not happening anymore, or that person hasn't rung me for 3 weeks. Hello, that's it. So you've got to also stop and think about what's not happening for me now, because that means that I've conquered that little bit of empowerment.
Mm. When when people start, let's say they start meditating and they don't really know um, what what their inner guide, their spirit guide is, like they're like, how does it speak to you? How does this work? Um, what kind of things do you tell people to kind of look for that could possibly be, I'm
It's
trying to
really
say.
interesting because it also depends on where your natural clairs are. So you could be clairsentient, you could be clairvoyant. It depends on how you receive. So, like, I can meditate till I'm black and blue in the face. No one talks to me while I'm meditating. I don't get visions, and I don't hear people, big hails of trumpets. It doesn't happen. And yet other people I know, they can go, I'm going to meditate today, and bang, it'll all be there. I tend to get a lot of my information later when I'm doing random crazy things like hanging out the washing or driving the car. When I'm in a really automatic, mindless state, is when I'll suddenly have, and I can only call them just those light bulb thought bubble moments. And I'll go, oh, okay, that is my intuition. That's how I get it. Um, with people who are new to this, you always go through the classic stuff around start to ask for signs. You do the whole thing around, pick something that's a little bit random, but not so random it's never going to happen. And then say, if this is for my highest good, please show me a whatever, and then watch and see what happens, and see if that's how your intuition talks to you. And it teaches you to speak to the guides and to trust them. So everybody receives it differently. And I would never say to someone, meditation is your only way, because it's not. Some people will receive it through asking for a sign and getting it. Other people will get it through numbers. Like, once you start to do something that allows your frequency to modulate, you will just naturally start seeing those synchronicities. It just happens. And it's not because they're all brand new. They were always there. You just didn't notice them. And now all of a sudden you're going, why am I seeing 11:11 on the clock all the time? Well, it was always there. It's just that now you're actually tuning into it happening. And you're suddenly seeing lots of feathers because they were probably already there, but now your spirit guides are saying, we're here. You're on the right path. We've got you. So it's sort of just getting people to understand how you hear it. A lot of people, it's gut feelings. You'll just go, no, I just know. Okay, you will trust it. If it's saying no, it doesn't feel right, that person doesn't, then that's it. Put your boundary up. So yeah, it's really difficult. You've really got to sort of, again, meet them where they're at as to what their natural tuning fork is. And that's different for all of us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not all psychic mediums can have that direct link where we just go and they tell you. So it's learning, and that evolves. That can very much evolve over time. The more that you put a practice in place and the more that you're consistent, and consistency is the key. And as much as you may not like to meditate, it's not even really about going and sitting cross-legged on the floor for 20 minutes every day. It's just finding a space every day to just stop and be present in the moment and listen and sense and see, just for that short amount of time. And then as you kind of conquer the first bit, you move into something else, and it evolves for everybody to whatever they want it to be. And then some people go off into full-blown, paganism or whatever. It's just whatever floats their boat. And that's great, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're doing something.
That's very helpful. And um, I used to get caught up in, and I still do at times when I talk to other people and they're like, oh, I did this much meditation and I got this. And I'm thinking, I don't
Should I
really
do
do
that?
that. You're right, I do. And for me, a lot of my meditation or I enjoy walking and just being present. And I'll just observe, like hear the sounds of the birds and just that for me is more like I do sometimes like meditate on my floor when it's quiet. But I'm not that person that does it every single day, but I do other things. And I'm just like you, where I get these ideas all the time. And it's when I'm in the shower or swimming or walking or driving. And it's like, whoa, wait, I have to write this stuff down.
And sometimes, I mean, I cannot tell you how long it took me to make that realization. I think I was at the point where I was putting the book together. Like I was well and truly like into it. And my brain would work in I call it like a mind mapping. And I've done it all my life. I tend to think and then branch out, and I'm like, and it wasn't until I spoke to a couple of people, I was having readings or what have you, and they'd be like, you do realize that that's not how everybody's brain works. That's actually spirit giving you what you need to do. And I'm like, oh, really? So not everyone thinks like this? And they're like, no, not everyone. That is, because I can remember I had a reading with somebody once, and they're like, but they're telling you. And I'm like, how are they telling me? And they're like, they're telling you. They're saying that they're telling you. And I'm like, and then when I described it, they're like, yeah, that's how they're telling you. And I'm like, oh, and that was one of the biggest light bulb moments I'd had, because I had always been like that. So spirit have always been communicating to me in that way since I was a child, because that was just what I thought my problem solving process was. But what I hadn't realized was my problem solving process involved my spiritual team and my intuition. And that was just the process that I worked through. So until somebody actually brought that to my attention, I was just like, oh, okay. And then now I just trust everything, no matter how crazy it is. I just trust it, because I've now learned, well, that's always been there. I just didn't know what it was. So often it's happening for you and you're getting it all the time, and you just don't actually know until someone else goes, hello, tap on the shoulder. Yeah. And it's
Oh,
very, very different.
that's so exciting and that's so hopeful. Because sometimes we can feel like, oh, I don't know how this works. But you're right. Like a lot of this stuff, for many of us, like I'm the same. I had all this stuff since I was a kid, but I would poo-poo it. I was like, well, no, that's a stupid idea, Stephanie. And then I was told these come from God's source universe. I was like,
Mm.
oh, I should listen to some of this stuff, right?
Yeah, I should pay closer attention. And I think a really important thing is when you start to recognize what it is and you get those ideas, something, suddenly you might be like, I really need to write a book. Oh, I can't write a book. Why do I feel like I need to write a book? Why do I keep getting all these ideas about what a book could look like? Oh, and then you mention that to someone and they go, do not mention these things to people. Do not talk about your inner voice to just anybody, because that what happens is then their own doubt is reflected back on you because they go, oh, I could never write a book. And they reflect that back on you and they go, oh, really? Do you think? And then you start to doubt all the information that you've been receiving around this is what you need to do. So I always say to people, be very particular in what you say and who you say it to. Always recognize the people who will champion you and hold space for you, even if they think you are, you know, stupid as, it doesn't matter, as long as they don't say that to you. So you need to be very mindful of who you trust with your process, that they will always support you and challenge you, because it doesn't, even me, I can still have phases where someone's only got to go, oh, really? And I'll go, okay, maybe that's not a good idea. So I don't think you're ever immune from that. You just have to be really careful in who you allow to hold space for you and what you tell them, especially family and friends and partners. Like, they'll all go, because they're always thinking of it from, if you go and do that, it's going to take money and we don't have money, or that's going to take time and that means it's taking time away from. So you don't want any of their emotional baggage to pollute what is something you should be doing for yourself.
Yeah. And if you start doing that to yourself too, you ruminate like, oh, like what I used to do, like I said, oh, that's stupid. Oh, I can't do that. How we talk to ourselves, it's like, okay, maybe, even if you're not really into it, you can say, okay, cool. Maybe that's something. I get ideas all the time and not everything will pan out, but you never know. And I've noticed if it's something that keeps coming up, then that's something to definitely look into.
Yeah. And it's also like, when you go back to that comfort meter analogy, it's also a good way of testing what isn't supposed to work. So if you get an idea and it really feels aligned, and you're like, I really feel strongly that I need to do this, whatever it is, and you just do it, what isn't meant to work won't work. And that's your judge of, okay, I wasn't meant to do it that way. I wasn't meant to market it that way. That's not for me because it's fallen over. And that doesn't take very long. And the more time you give to yourself to nurture your, and for the want of a word, gifts, and listen to your intuition, the quicker you'll see that happening. So you may, I find now, I only have to do something for maybe a week or two. And if it just falls over, I'm like, okay, that's not for me. Because if it's going to work, it'll work. So you can also use it as a testing device for everything you do. And if something doesn't just flow and it isn't easy, then there's a part of it or all of it that you need to put down and reassess, because that's all part of that process of hearing what's going on. Anything that's meant to happen for you will happen for you seamlessly. And I mean that quite literally. It will just happen for you. And if you think back over times when that has occurred in this context, you will then be able to go, okay, I can remember a time when that happened perfectly for me. So that's the feeling I need to always look for. And when things don't happen perfectly and there's bumps in the road, what was the bump for? Was the bump to make me braver? Was it to make me enforce my boundaries? Was it to tell me to stop people pleasing? Was it because I wasn't honoring my self-worth? There's usually always a pattern to the bumps in your road.
Yes. And that's why when they used to say like try, or keep pushing through, it's not true, because sometimes you fail and that's okay, because that's telling you this is not for you. So that was
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
helpful when
So,
I started learning that, because I was like, oh, I don't have to push through. No, it's not working.
and and it depends on why you're pushing through. Like, some people need to push through if the thing they need to learn is to not be fearful of trying something new.
Right.
But there's a limit to how much you keep pushing. Like, if you try something new because you think that will bring some form of development to you, and I've tried it for 2 or 3 weeks and like it's just not rocking my boat, well then, okay, let it go. Don't keep trying it for 6 months and putting effort into it when you're still feeling like it's not doing what I need to do. So it's learning to know at what point your meter is going, nah, chuck it out. And it might not be chuck it all out. It just might be, let's just fine tune this a little bit, like work out what part of it isn't working.
What
So
lights you up and
that's
what
it.
doesn't?
If it brings you joy and it's giving you a positive feeling, then there won't be any bumps in the road. But if you love going to the gym, but the only time you can go to the gym is 4 o'clock in the morning, but you find if you go to the gym at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's fine, then that's your fine tune. Go to the gym at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't, why are you pushing yourself to go at 4 o'clock in the morning? Oh, well, because that's the only time that I can find for myself. Well, then you need to rotate something so the 4 o'clock in the afternoon is the time that you find for yourself because that's what feels comfortable.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be that strategic about it. It's the whole point is stop and think. And it's about you and what works for you. Because when you nurture you, you can then nurture everything else around you. So you do have to be a little bit strategic.
And another thing that I'm sure we all have experienced, I definitely have, is when people will see something in you and they're like, "Oh, Stephanie, I can see you doing this." But I'm like, I don't want to. And I have gotten defensive and like really actually argued with people because I felt like I'm being pressured because they can see me doing this. And I'm thinking, oh, should I be doing that? I don't want to. And they're like, why are you getting mad? It's because I'm feeling that pressure. But I'm saying like, I don't want to, right?
Mm.
And knowing when I realized, like, I was like, why am I so mad? Why am I getting defensive with people? And because they're trying to compliment. But I realized, does this light me up? No. It's nice that people see me doing that, but it's not what I see for myself or what I know within me.
And then you get into the whole other conversation in that if somebody keeps saying to you, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, and it's triggering you to the point where you're getting anxious and angry about it, then why is this triggering me? Is it because people have always forced their idea of what I should be on me and I do it even though I'm not happy? Because the lesson there is say no. The lesson there is to listen to your comfort meter and go, it's a great idea and it's probably a fantastic opportunity, but it just doesn't feel right and I don't think I'd enjoy it. So no thanks. Bang. You've just conquered that lesson that you've been taught. So how you react as opposed to respond, which is a whole other podcast topic,
Right.
um, is also something really important to listen to. Things that irritate you, aggravate you, get you angry, stop and think, why is this annoying me so much? When John Bloggs over there is actually hearing the same conversation, he's cool as a cucumber and doesn't understand why you're getting so upset about it. What is it around the conversation topic or place or person that's triggering you? And then start to reflect upon that. So yeah, there's so many parts to it, but you do get to a point where you don't have to be in your head so much about it anymore because you just intrinsically know and it comes to you very quickly.
Yeah. And that's the beauty. That's the hope that we have is that we can get there. And it's a very exciting journey as we as we go along and learning more about
Yes,
ourselves.
it is. And there is no part of anything that we were born into this life that is meant to be difficult. We allow the difficult to occur, and it's not meant to be that way at all. You're meant to come here to enjoy the human experience, learn from the human experience, love lots of people, determine who works for you and who doesn't, learn how to let things go that aren't serving you. And it's meant to be easy and graceful and joyful. And anywhere where that's not happening, that's that comfort meter saying to you, you're moving in the wrong direction. You need to shift. And you're shifting until you feel the comfort meter shift with you. And that might take lots of shifts. But eventually you will find that space where you go, this is better. This is where I need to be. And then off you go.
Beautiful. That's wonderful, Michelle. Thank you so much. Now
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm gonna put all your information in the show notes, and you said you're gonna give me a discount code for people to put in to
Yeah, so if this resonates with anybody, and often what I'll say is when people listen to content like this, they will often find they'll start to be thinking and then it overrides what they're hearing. So I often say if you listen to content or you read something that resonates and kind of gets you thinking, go back and listen to it again with a pen and paper and start writing down what you feel and what you get as you're listening to that content or you're rereading that information, because that is your inner self going, you need to listen. You're not hearing this by mistake. This was put in front of you because there's something in here you need to hear right now at this moment. And then if people feel like they want to reach out and connect just to work on that part of what they've picked up, they can touch base with me and I'll give you the links and I'll put a discount code in there for anybody who wants to do that. Because sometimes you just need that one moment to then bounce that off someone and have them go, well, try this. And that's just the one thing that shifts them into a new direction.
beautiful. Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. Do you have any last words of wisdom that you want to leave with the viewers?
Just to take any opportunity you can when you hear something, see something, you feel something isn't working, to just stop and have the presence of mind to go, why? Why is this happening for me? What do I need to stop and pay attention to? And what do I need to do to solve it? And just try something. And as I said, that just could be just put up that simple boundary. Say no to that person next time. Don't answer the call next time they ring. Go and have that conversation with your workplace person. Have that conversation with your partner and try to step over the fear. And if you can't have the conversation, write it down and give them a letter or send them an email or whatever you need to do to break through that barrier, because the first time you do it will be the beginning of all the other times that you will then be able to do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michelle.
You're welcome. So
it's
lovely to connect with you.
yes, it's been wonderful having this conversation with you. And thank you all for watching the Stuff Up, listening to the Stuff Up podcast. Sending love to you all. Bye.